So last night, the Atlanta Hawks outlasted the Milwaukee Bucks, pulled away 120-100, a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Now, obviously, no Chris Middleton last night. He wasn't a part of the game. But to me, this game, the score, these two teams, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Atlanta Hawks, everything's just been a bit bizarre about both of these teams. Kind of hard to put my finger on it, why they each have been struggling so much. The Milwaukee Bucks, after last night's performance, are 6-8. They're 11th in the Eastern Conference. The Atlanta Hawks, with the win, are now 5-9. They're 13th in the Eastern Conference. They have the third worst record in the Eastern Conference. And this is the first time that the Hawks and the Bucks are meeting up since the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And again, I understand Chris Middleton wasn't playing last night for the Bucks, so I'm going to factor that out. But this is just super bizarre to me, the types of struggles that both of these two teams have had, because it's one thing for the Milwaukee Bucks to have this championship hangover. And to be honest, I still don't think it's a championship hangover so much as it's a kind of refusal or reluctance to defend. This is a team that was a top 4 defense in the postseason last year. Right now, they're the bottom third of the NBA. They're 20th in the NBA in points allowed. So defensively, they just don't want to defend right now. And it's interesting because it's one thing to have a championship hangover when you have different legitimate super kind of powerhouses in your conference. But for the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'll touch on the Atlanta Hawks and their perspective in a second, what's shocking to me for the Bucks is, again, I know that Drew Holiday has missed about half the games. I know Chris Middleton has missed about half the games. But outside of Milwaukee, the fact that Kyrie's not with the Brooklyn Nets at the moment, the fact that Ben Simmons isn't currently actively playing for the 76ers at the moment, means there aren't any superpowers in the Eastern Conference. And really, who the Bucks are trailing to, besides those two teams, are the Washington Wizards, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then a bevy of other random teams. The Heat, the Raptors, the Celtics, the Hornets. And for the Bucks to be trailing those teams right now in the standings, again, it's early in the year. There's still plenty of time. Nothing is etched in stone right now. It's just kind of mind-boggling. It's just bizarre to me because it's not for a lack of caring. Giannis is always going to care. He's still playing like he cares. This is a guy who's averaging 26.5 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks per game. So he still cares, and he's the most important Milwaukee Buck to care because he's the leader. That team feeds off of his energy. So he's showing that he still cares, but for whatever reason, it's just not translating to wins. And I know that they've been struck by the injury bug a little bit. As I mentioned, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton haven't been available for nearly half the games. But even when they have been there, Chris Middleton hasn't necessarily been playing stellar basketball. Yes, he's averaging 20 points a game, but he's shooting 25% from 3. Drew Holiday. I love Drew Holiday, another UCLA guy. He'll still pick you up full court. He'll play decent defense during the regular season. At times, he can turn it on. And he was actually one of the most important pieces for Team USA winning the gold medal this past Olympics. And he showed signs of his defensive prowess, but on offense, he's shooting 33% from 3 and sub 40% from the floor, which isn't going to cut it. So it's hard to see exactly why this team is struggling the way that they did. The only thing I can attribute it to is some injuries and a lack of defense at this very moment in time. The silver lining is They're kind of saving grace, for lack of a better term, and no pun intended. Grayson Allen has been their only saving grace this year, averaging 16 points per game on 43% shooting. He's been a sensational offseason signing. But it's kind of weird to me what's been going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. I just don't really get it. And even more surprising is with the Atlanta Hawks, who haven't had quite as many injuries to deal with. Obviously, they were just dealt a blow yesterday, losing DeAndre Hunter for at least 8 weeks. So he'll be on the shelf for a little bit. But this was a team that got off to such a great start. They knocked off the Dallas Mavericks during the opening week of the NBA schedule, and all of us said, oh, here we go. They're picking up right where they were last year. Nope. Kind of spoke a little bit too soon. This is a team that has been stumbling out of the gates for whatever reason, and they've lost. Prior to the win against the Milwaukee Bucks, they had lost 6 straight. They lost 8 of their last 9. And with the exception of one close loss to the Phoenix Suns by 4 points on this huge road stretch and road trip for them, 7 of the 8 losses were by 14.5 points. They were just getting utterly outplayed. And again, it's kind of hard to come to grips with because of the depth of this team. Now, the problem for them is that Danilo Gallinari and Kevin Huerter and Lou Williams haven't been playing up to expectations so far. Cam Reddish has kind of been coming down to earth a little bit, and it required that 42-point, 8 rebounds, 10 assists type of performance from Trae Young last night to collect the win. Perhaps this can kind of catapult them forward and vault them back into relevancy in the Eastern Conference. It's still very early for them, but that was the best performance that Trae Young has had this year, and perhaps that's what they're going to need. Because right now, this is a team that they collected a big-time win, but there are some inconsistencies with the way that they've been performing, and it's hard to boggle down and pinpoint one specific reason why they've been slow. I love everything about the Atlanta Hawks. I love Nate McMillan. I think he does such a great job of inspiring the team. And again, I think for the Atlanta Hawks, it's not about a lack of care either. I think it's just some of the complementary pieces around Trae Young just haven't been there. Now, I know that the NBA has enacted some new rules regarding fouls, and that obviously was a huge detriment for Trae Young, who was so savvy last year, using the pump fake and leaning into defenders to get fouls, or kind of when he would dribble it up and down the floor, position himself in front of a body that's trailing, and he would just kind of plant himself in front and then just fall down, which is very intelligent of a basketball play. But obviously the NBA hasn't been rewarding him quite as much at the free throw line. We've seen how that's impacted and affected James Harden, but obviously last night we saw that wasn't an issue. 8 for 13 from the three-point line. Now, whether he's going to be able to shoot like that consistently, I don't know. But he's got an incredible handle. Just dribbles the basketball on a yo-yo stick. And that dribble allows him to get to any spot on the floor where he can be effective. That floater, if he knocks that down all the time, he's unstoppable. Because that floater is literally an unstoppable shot. The way that the ease in which he can get into the paint, very few can match that. So they're going to need him to continue to play well until this group kind of shakes out of their funk. I think that this win will help them do that. I think the fact that they went up against the Bucks, the manner that they beat them, the defending champs, that was a big time performance. But they got to hope that Trae Young can continue to cook like this for a while until some of the other guys start to step up a little bit more. That's what they're going to need.